Hello, everybody. If you're joining us, please say hello in the chat box and introduce yourself. Would be wonderful to see who's here today. And we have a team of experts here to work with you and inspire you, we hope, today. If you are just joining us, we have over 800 people registered for this webinar. I think it's a very important topic and very pertinent. Okay, we've got Fanny from Habitat for Humanity. I've got our friends from Catawba County in North Carolina and upstream. Welcome. I love my friends from the Diaper Bank. Hello, Candace and Jacinda and Patricia. Welcome, everybody. Please introduce yourself and open the chat box. Catherine, you want to say hello to anybody here?
Yes. Well, I'm looking, speed reading through the through the chat box. Wow, this is great.
Hello to our friends from Lung Cancer and Wilkes County, North Carolina. Alice, Stanton, Virginia. Abilene.
Oh, there's Christine Casey. Hey, Christine. I thought I saw your name fly by.
Yeah, our friends from Ottawa, Canada. We're going to be talking about U.S. and Canadian giving trends, and we'll touch a tiny bit on the international arena, but our focus is going to be pretty much on the Northern Hemisphere. Beth Ann, you want to say hello to some people?
Yes, I saw actually Bonnie, who has taken the Major Gifts Intensive before, so I saw her speed by, and Julie, who's one of the people who's going to take her group is going to take it this year. So it's kind of fun to see people I've spoken with recently. So
oh, great. Patricia said hello from Western North Carolina. And we've got our friend from Zurich, Switzerland. Welcome in Silicon Valley.
Chris Coots, yeah.
It's so heartening to see our enormous and diverse and glowing nonprofit community today. Leisha, you want to say hello to some people?
I can't keep up with the chat. It's rolling so quickly, but I did see, so I didn't catch the name, but I saw Warchild Canada, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
So hi to my Canadian friends.
Yes, and Ellie, you want to say hello to some people?
Well, I am encouraged by the diversity of our attendees from every corner of our country and beyond, international participants, and I look forward to a wonderful dialogue with this group.
Yes. And I want to say too that I see a lot of our clients and former clients of Gail Perry's group here. And also, as Beth Ann mentioned, many registers from our Major Gifts Intensive that we've run for the past 10 years, and we will be talking about that today. Gosh, and I have to say also that it's an uncertain time for fundraising. And I think we have a lot to talk about, What does everybody think? Do you think we have a lot to talk about today? I'd love to hear also in the chat box, and it's going to go fast, but we can try to keep up. What are some of the trends and challenges on your mind about the fundraising climate? We would love to hear your thoughts. And maybe Beth Ann and Catherine, maybe I'm going to be talking, so the rest of y'all, let's pay attention to what are we seeing? What's on everybody's mind?
Oh, Annie says I'm sure we all have increased goals for 2025.
Oh boy.
Annie, we feel your pain.
And I'm going to go ahead and share. I'm going to share a PowerPoint slide deck while I introduce everyone, and then we're going to go just to the general group. But here we all are, as you can see. And I want to first introduce Dr. Catherine Gamble, my business partner in Gail Perry Group. And I've known her for over 30 years. She's managed multi-millions in capital campaigns. She's also a doctorate in governance, and she's an adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins University. She's really leads our consulting practice here and is a dear friend. And Ellie Jordfall, I've also known you, Ellie, about 30 years, I think. She's an executive leader and fundraiser and a speaker. I've spoken on the big stage with Ellie at the AHP conferences. She's a national authority in Grateful Patient and philanthropy and healthcare, and she's got 30 plus years leading large campaigns. She is a current frontline fundraiser. The rest of us are consultants. Ellie is fighting the good fight as a frontline staff closing, gosh, what, Ellie, 8-figure gifts for your favorite medical system. And Leisha is a very popular speaker on the international circuit, Leisha Pena. She's an expert in legacy fundraising, and she's our go-to expert for any questions we have legacy related. She's also a consultant, multilingual. Leisha, where are you from?
I was born in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, living in Canada. So speak French, English, Spanish, and I understand Portuguese and Italian.
Well, congratulations. I wish I had that skill set. But Leisha is also a very popular speaker around the world. And I would like also to say that you are looking at the faculty of our annual Major Gifts Intensive that we'll talk about. Everybody here participates and coaches and teaches. But I don't want to forget Beth Ann Locke. Beth Ann directs the Major Gifts Intensive, and she's, gosh, 25 plus years in high net worth donor philanthropy. I've presented with her on the stage at AFP and other conferences. Very a go-to presenter and thought leader in the major gift space. So I think, what do you think? I think we've got a great group of experts here, a great group of experts. And this is myself, I forgot. You may or may not be familiar with our brand or Gail Perry, but I've been a consultant and a coach for over 30 years. I stopped counting. I was named LinkedIn Top Voice in Philanthropy, I think in 2022. I've coached campaigns. I've keynoted fundraising campaigns. I'm sorry, I've keynoted fundraising conferences around the world, maybe over 50 at this point. I'm an author and speaker and consultant and founder of the Gail Perry Group. So here we are now. Oh, one bit about our company, Gail Perry Group. We run capital campaigns and fundraising strategy for organizations of all sizes. We run fundraising workshops for trustees and board members. Always a common challenge. And we provide these thought leadership webinars to the philanthropy and fundraising field on an ongoing basis through our workshops, our webinars, our LinkedIn Lives, and our newsletter on Friday. Clients include all types of nonprofits. And again, you see a little plug for the Major Gifts Intensive. Anybody want to say anything? Catherine, you're looking thoughtful.
Well, I'm making notes, Gail. Well, I like to write things down about some of these topics that are being brought up, which are spot on with what we'll talk about today. So, but there's some that I just want to make sure we capture some of the detail. So
Right.
I'm excited about this conversation.
Well, this is our topic list, everybody. This is something. This is a lot of content, and we're going to talk about the giving climate for 2025 and the trends, uncertainty and stability, particularly the issue of declining everyday donors and an increasing emphasis on major gifts, the role of AI, the role of DAFs and DAF donors, potential cuts in government funding and tax law changes, the intergenerational transfer of wealth, the whole rise of the younger philanthropists. And last, a very, very current question, and we send our hearts, prayers, and whatever help support we can offer to everyone in LA and the US who are experiencing these devastating fires. And how do environmental disasters impact philanthropy? And then once we go through these topics, we want to, our group, as a group, we will chat a bit about what you can do, because we want to give you some thoughtful takeaways about particular strategies that will help you survive and overcome this this adventure that we face in 2025. And I just want to say that everywhere you look, there's a lot of chatter about what's ahead. There's economic uncertainty. There are absolutely going to be political shifts, both here and around the world. There are global challenges, and change is absolutely constant. So we're going to be tackling all of this, discussing the latest trends, the strategies and insights, hopefully, that can really help you navigate this shifting world of major and principal gifts and donors and their philanthropy. And so with, I'm going to take the webinar slide down and turn it to our group. So with so much uncertainty ahead, what can we realistically expect from major donors in 2025? So, gosh, who shall I ask first? What will the giving climate look like? Who wants to speak to that? Leisha, you want to speak about the giving climate for 2025? Up your
Yeah, I just realized the moment the first word came out of my mouth, I realized I was still muted. So I'm obviously going to take the legacy angle because that's more my area of expertise. But definitely, I think, and I think this is all encompasses what I'm about to say really touches on many points that you put in your agenda, is that while there is concern and worry about the impact of the world as it is today and how that's going to impact regular giving, monthly giving, major gift, etc. This is where legacies come in and can be a lifeline for charities that perhaps have, kind of touch and go regular giving, individual giving programs. So, of course, if you start your legacy program this year, it's not necessarily going to give you the results, but always start something, always do something. And therein lies the importance of talking with donors.
right. And someone asked what we mean by legacy. We mean planned giving and estate
So,
west giving. Right,
yes,
Lee?
gifts and wills, gifts
Yeah.
in wills specifically.
And then, the overall giving climate, there are different data points that are misleading, I think, or confusing about what the trends really say. For example, I was sort of stunned that Giving USA had, what was the number? See, I have it over here in my notes. Giving USA, what?
It's 557 million, 0.16 billion, excuse me, in current dollars for 2023.
A 16% increase
Mhm.
from the year before, Giving Tuesday. And so we saw a lot of small donors jump up and participate. And yet, on the other hand, we're seeing the number of Americans, at least, who are giving to charities dropping significantly. Beth Ann, nodded.
Well, I think it's fantastic that Giving Tuesday went up, but as we've seen from the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, the increase in philanthropy overall is being pulled along by very large donors. And I think when we talk about the economic outlook, there's the economic outlook for everybody, and there's the economic outlook for the sort of, $3 to $6 million people who have wealth in that category, and then above that. And I think who we're thinking about is a little bit more the major gift donors, although all donors are important. So when we're thinking, there, people at the lower end of the economic, regular wealth people, are more affected by the thought of what's coming or the fear of what's coming and what's actually happening to the pocketbook. Ellie, you talked about this a little bit earlier when we were chatting.
Yes, I think that I sense that there is a lot of concern, a lot of worry. We have to acknowledge that. There are many uncertainties that we all face. But I want to remind everyone that our profession has always been marked by a characteristic, and that is resilience. To embark on a career in fund development that some of us decided to do very early on. It was intentional for me, and I know many others. We had to be resilient. Some of us have worked for small human service organizations, struggling arts organizations, museums, grassroots advocacy organizations for women and children. You have to be resilient to do this kind of work. And so I want to just kind of dwell on that term and encourage everyone today in this webinar. And as you think about 2025 and you look to the future, none of us really have a crystal ball, but we do have our commitment to our missions where we work. We're dedicated to that mission. We do have a basic fundamental skill set and best practices in development. Those are the things to hold on to and to rely on in this kind of climate, because there are a lot of unknowns. But what is known is that our donors are still going to care about our critical missions, and we are going to have a commitment to the noble work that we do, which is to change the world for the better. I saw a comment from Robin that was kind of a bright light for me as I read through the comments. Robin said, "We've hosted donor receptions and people are coming." What does that tell you?
That's
Your
right.
donors still love you.
That's right.
And, if we have time in this webinar, I think we need to devote some space to talking about the critical fundamental skills that we need to practice more of to be successful this year.
I think that's how we really want to wrap up. I did see a question about, can we define major donors? And that's a great question. We were talking to a client earlier today. The definition of a major donor or a principal donor or a mega donor, which is a word I like to use, depends on your own organization. It's an internal definition. A major donor or principal donor would be somebody who gives at a certain sizable level more than your everyday donors. And so we design strategies around groups of donors in different categories. Those strategies may or may not be appropriate, but that's generally how organizations are organize their fundraising program. Yes, Leisha.
May I offer just a slight change to that? Is instead
Please.
of qualifying the donor as being major, qualify the gift, because it's the gift that's major, not the actual donor. And my donors, the donors I work with for a legacy, they're not considered major because they're not giving at a regular, like at a massive amount, but their legacy will be massive. So I'd love to just challenge this in the sector. Not, and you just reminded me of this. Just, it's not the donor that's major or minor or intermediate, it's the gift.
Yes.
And we can't confuse the two.
One of our pet peeves is evaluating donors based on their wealth capacity as opposed to their passion. Catherine Gamble, I think you have something to say about that.
About the well, I'm going to add a little bit to the definition of major donor, because we did that earlier today to that client, and this is that kind of textbook. I got to teach, so I got that situation. But it's gifts of the magnitude with transformational value to the organization and to the benefactor. So transformational value, and which kind of leans into what was being said before, because that is important. It's not necessarily a particular dollar amount. What's transformational can be different among different people and different organizations. So think about it that way. I think it will help you a little bit. And I want to add too to Ellie's point about the best practice and staying there. We were doing all this, our consulting business all through the pandemic. I think I was thinking about this the other day. We started onboarding about 2 or 3 new campaign clients in the weeks prior to the shutdown. And there was so much reaction, and it all normal. It's not a criticism, just an observation. A lot of reaction to the context in which we were going to do our work. Now, context is important, but think about the most important thing was, are we staying close to our donors? Are we responding to the donors' needs and what their concerns are, more so than our own personal reaction to the environment in which we're raising money?
And also, I want to go back to the idea of instability and an unstable environment. Without a doubt, we are looking at a lot of unknowns in the external climate for everything in the coming year, between environment and political changes and everything else. But Catherine, you have a story about a capital campaign during the Great Recession at the North Carolina Museum
I was
of
at
Art?
the North Carolina Museum of Art. So I saw several people concerned about arts organizations. And the first year, it became a $50 million campaign. The first year of that campaign, like 2006, I believe it was, we raised $10 million in campaign commitments. Then the great downfall happened. The Great Recession occurred, and the wealth just fell out. I mean, the markets just went completely south.
Nobody had
Even
any money.
nobody, but even in that context, we still raised $4 million in that period of time. Now, it took longer for the economy to recover, as you know. I'm sure most of you remember that period of time. And it took a little longer. We never achieved another year of $10 million for that campaign, and we had to extend the timeline. But here's the point. We never stopped responding to our donors, and we never stopped raising money and opening the door for those gift conversations to occur. Because one of my favorite things to say, donors are donors for a reason. They want to give away their money because that is their legacy in the world. And I use the word legacy in the biggest term. And they're wanting to make a difference and give back. And whatever happens with the uncertainty, sometimes they waffle a little bit, just like we all do. Uncertainty is with us all the time. Let me just say that too. It's more present to us sometimes, like the fires and this kind of thing. But at other times we feel really secure because it doesn't seem to be so on the surface, but it's there all the time. Uncertainty.
Exactly right. Thank you so much, Catherine. So we do, there's another issue regarding the economic outlook. And I just want to make the point that while everyday donors are declining, we are seeing an increase in major gift fundraising and major donors of larger gifts. So the dollars continue to go up, but the numbers of donors are declining is something we're extremely concerned about and worried about in philanthropy. But so here's a silver lining in all this, though, is that the U.S. stock market went up, over 22% last year. And all the research shows that fundraising and gifts follow the U.S. stock market. They are a lagging indicator. And so as long as the stock market is high, we can expect that major and principal gift donors have the capacity to make significant transformational gifts right now. Would y'all agree?
I have a little caveat on that from the Bank of America study, which since you're in the older category of 44-year-old and more, that people there are more invested in stock market, bonds, etc. But younger people are more leveraged with things like cryptocurrency and whatnot. I was just looking at what a difference in the economic outlook thinking along the lines of stocks versus other types of investments, including real estate, etc. So I think as we are working to what we know, we need to be aware of what's coming along behind us, because the values and what is deemed important is different for different generations.
That's right. We're going to touch different generations in a second. We have a lot to say about that. Again, it's uncertainty, and what drives me crazy is that all the different demographic groups have a typical way they like to be communicated with. But we'll park that one for later. And so anybody else want to comment on the philanthropy trends amid uncertainty in a changing world? I think we've sort of covered that. Ellie, did you have anything you wanted to say? Anything else?
No, I think that a lot of the questions are related to, what are the big ideas? What are priorities that we can put in front of donors? What will resonate with donors? And that brings us to a question you asked a few minutes ago, Gail. It's what do we look for in major gift donors? It is a known fact that there are, your database should be segmented, if not by a big, expensive platform, but you could do it yourself and start looking at your top 3 to 5% of who are giving the largest gifts to your institution. I think that this is the year more than ever that you want to focus on that top % of your donor constituency, because whatever you are doing in the form of stewardship and donor-centric activities to nurture that group, that is what's going to result in larger gifts and greater success for your institution going forward. And making sure that you have big ideas and your organizational priorities that intersect with your donors' top interests as well. That's what's going to lead to success, in my opinion.
So Ellie is suggesting as one of the strategies against uncertainty is to really identify those top, I hate to use the word performers, but most loyal and most passionate and most generous donors who are giving the largest gifts, and make sure that they are properly cultivated, stewarded, and have a plan for their relationship. But I would also counter that by saying, Ellie, that I think a lot of studies also show that of your smaller everyday donors, maybe 3 to 5% of your smaller donors are capable of a major gift, which goes back, I think, to Catherine's point. Catherine, what were you saying about passion versus capacity? You want to speak to that?
Oh, and Ellie speaks to this quite well herself. I mean, she, in terms of, and she uses the word affinity, but this is what the donor's loyalty and passion and desire, that is the key, for lack of a better term, data point to understand around a donor's what they care about. Oftentimes we couch that in terms of values. What does the donor value? What is important to them? Is very critical to understand, which is what drives conversations with major donors, is to more deeply understand them. And wealth alone is not an indicator of giving.
If there's one takeaway from today, it is certainly that it's, we have to stop using wealth as a driver of philanthropy. It isn't. It is all about affinity.
Yes.
And that is something you have to educate your leadership about. You have to educate your board about that idea, because if you don't, you're just chasing the wrong determinant of giving. Everything is about affinity. What does affinity mean to your institution? Think about that after this session. For us in healthcare philanthropy, the biggest driver is gratitude for the care that someone received. If you're an arts organization, is it that profound experience as a result of a concert? You all can probably identify what affinity and donors mean for your institution. That's number one. You got to start there.
I think Leisha wanted to add something to this discussion.
Yes.
Did I look like I was about to jump out of my seat? And to build on what Ellie is saying, which obviously I think we all agree on, but all of this needs to start with your internal systems. What data are you capturing? Are you capturing the data that is valuable, that allows you to make strategic decisions, or are you capturing any data just because it looks pretty on a spreadsheet? And are you doing something with that data? Are you pulling insights? Are you gathering information so you know what makes your donors tick, so that you can build those relationships based on their interests, based on their values? Because you can go and look at all the top donors in your database, but you've done nothing to capture their attention and retain their attention. It's going to be a long haul. It's going to take a long time. In addition to that, if you just focus on although I agree with what you said, Ellie, looking at your, top 10, 15% of your donors
3 to 5%.
3 to 5, sorry.
Yeah.
Regardless. Well, you also need to prepare the next cohort. You got to work with your other donors to feed that lifeline. I'm trying not to use pipeline anymore. No pipeline, lifeline, because donors are bringing a lifeline to your organization. Okay. Pipeline, as an environmentalist, I can't use pipeline.
Oh, good point. Good point.
So, no, but all kidding aside, yeah, it's just another thing to take away is take this year to also, really hone in those relationships. The money comes.
Yes.
The money comes. It'll come. So, okay, I'll shut up now.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, I want to go back to the Bank of America High Net Worth study, because that's one of Beth Ann's specialties is analyzing that data, and what she also does. This means that blankety blankety blank. What do we do about it? The Bank of America High Net Worth Donor Study comes out every year or maybe every other year.
Every 2 years.
We've been tracking.
It came out last year.
Yeah, we've been tracking it carefully because it's a thoughtful. They're interviewing high net worth donors, which is our pool that we really want to talk about a lot today. What do you think, Beth Ann?
it's high net worth Americans, and
Yeah,
right, and they do talk about philanthropy, but they talk about quite a few other things. And some of the things that I found really, I mean, they talked about how they do philanthropy, sort of what their views are and the generational stuff. But one thing I really liked was this wealth transfer. Again, we touched on that it's 84 trillion, so big, and that boomers and older than boomers are now transferring to Gen X. But one thing I also found was there's a lot of tension around how the inheritance goes and how people think that it should go and what people are putting in those plans. And so what they say is that people are making, in the last 3 years, more than 50% of Americans had changed and updated their will. So Leisha, I was thinking of that with you, because although we don't always get that money right away, often it comes in within 5 years because people are at the point of doing that. And 38% do it because of tax law changes. And we were going to talk about that a little bit, Gail, about the tax law changes that are potentially coming or not coming. And also just how younger people, now again, younger people are 21 to 43, are 88% are ready to take on charitable causes. And I found take on very interesting. It's really that they want to get embedded instead of just make a donation, not embedded as employees, but really taking it on in a different way. And I think that's versus 50% of older adults at 44 plus, are thinking about doing. I think that's really important for you to think about as you're looking at different donors in your donor pool.
You're especially in this legacy giving area. And what do you think about this vast intergenerational transfer? I know my mother and father have passed away, and I received their assets, and it was a chance for me to consider being a philanthropist at a whole new level than I was able to be before. What are your thoughts, Leisha? You're muted right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just find it, I've been doing legacy giving for over 15 years now. And I still find it surprising how there's still a lot of people that don't realize that this is like, we've been talking about the multi-generational wealth transfer, well, for as long as I've been in fundraising, and that's over 20 years. And I still find it astounding how there's still organizations and fundraisers that are like, oh, what are you talking about? It's happening. We're in it. We're in it. It's going to end. I think it's estimated around 2030 something. That's just a few years from now. It's 2025. If the baby boomer generation will be done with the baby boomer generation, sorry, I don't mean to sound crass, but once that whole generation has passed on, that's it. We missed the boat. So what are organizations?
They're shifting in their seats here nervously.
And it doesn't always mean that children, heirs, are going to continue to support the causes that their parents supported. Exactly. We cannot take that for granted.
That's right.
And that's the shift that Beth Ann was talking about. It's the idea that wills are changing, beneficiaries are changing, the loyalty to brands are changing. If you can get better points with the Hyatt than the Hilton chain, people can change their loyalty at the drop of a hat. And it's the same thing with nonprofit causes and organizations. Yes. It's incumbent upon us to be responsive to that and to figure out new ways to engage people of different generations and age groups.
Right.
And I think a kind of summary statement around that, both in what Beth Ann said and Ellie just said, that BOA of report also, it shows younger generations are more driven by issues. Mm-hmm. Older generation is driven more by loyalty to organizations. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's, blended all in there, but that's to that point. The boomer generation who's giving to you now doesn't mean that their children will follow suit, or the next generation will follow suit. Exactly.
Which means that, go back to Leisha's comment, keep the relationships, talk to people, listen to people, steward your donors, have a plan. I've read in Chronicle of Philanthropy about an organization that created a deliberate plan to engage the children of their major donors. and it was very successful. You know, maybe these children are available and would be thrilled to be invited in, you know. So I want to move on because I want to make wise use of our time. We do want to talk about the role and the promise of artificial intelligence, AI, in fundraising. And Ellie Jordfall is a senior fundraiser at a major medical and university institution. Ellie, talk to us about your thoughts about AI and the future.
Well, it's the technology that is developing so fast that it's, I think, caught all of us sort of off guard. And we are, we don't really have time to learn everything there is to learn about this new technology, especially as it relates to fundraising and philanthropy. And we must first and foremost figure out how to use AI ethically and responsibly, and to create guardrails and an infrastructure around that. I am grateful that the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill has forged and formed a working group to address that. And I am a member of that group, and I'm actually in charge of the ethics committee for that. But what we're seeing practically is that donors are very skeptical about AI. They may not know as much about the value of it for fundraising purposes, and they're questioning it. So for us to be able to demonstrate that we have worked out a framework around how we're going to use AI, I think is important to our donors, and we owe it to them to be able to explain it. Generative AI is extremely important in helping us track what the main interests of our donors are. You know, once we can see what they read among all the stuff that we send them and have conversations with them about what interests them the most, that's a great springboard for making sure that we are aligned with their priorities. To use AI for predictive modeling is an opportunity that we have. It, you know, it's expensive to purchase a platform for predictive modeling, but there's a lot you can do independently if you don't have the technology. It goes back to figuring out what is going to resonate most with donors. Their past behavior is going to tell us a lot about their future behavior. That's sort of like internalized machine learning. It's that technology that the experts, you know, it's that premise that experts are using to build predictive modeling platforms. And you can do a lot of that on your own with that top, especially with your top % of donors. You can't do it for everyone anecdotally, but you can do it for a few of your donors.
Thank you so much.
May I add to that is their past giving shows what they were inspired up to by past fundraisers. So I think sometimes they can do more as well if they have the proper, you know, affinity for the organization, and you have good fundraisers using good practices. I mean, that's just part of it.
And it's not just past giving, it's past behavior.
Yes.
And I think that's important because for arts organizations, it's really understanding what performances, you know, is this person attending? It's really much broader than just giving behavior.
Yeah, I think Leisha wanted to make a point about AI as well. Leisha?
Oh, Ellie summarized it very, very well. But yeah, I agree. I think there's two things I wanted to say when it comes to AI. At the beginning, a lot of people had a lot of fear around it because they don't understand. It's easy to fear something when you don't quite understand it. I think there's been a lot of education in the last year and a half, 2 years on this, that more and more people are embarking on it. If you're not comfortable with it, then don't go into it, but open your mind to it, because it can really be a useful tool, even if you just use it to have it draft the first draft of your appeal. If that's as simple as what you do, that you just saved an hour's time. Great, you just won. Yeah. Well, I'm being very, very conservative in that. But don't think it's gonna. It's not the latest. It is a shiny thing. We have to be careful not to let it distract us from the good, solid well, the good stuff, we know that fundraising works.
I know.
Well, I can see from the comments that a lot of
Yeah.
people are using the
Yeah.
tools already, which is
Mhm.
great. And I think that time saving, as Leisha pointed out, is huge. It's not meant to replace any jobs, but it's a huge efficiency tool because
Yeah.
many fundraisers are feeling like they're looking for a needle in a haystack, right? They don't know where to begin. AI tools can help you become more laser focused about your work.
We could have a whole discussion just on AI. That would be so much fun. I mean, y'all, these topics are so deep, and we're really just skimming the surface because we want to give you sort of an overview. But I have to tell everybody right now, give me 3 minutes for a commercial because this is an open free webinar with leading thought leaders in the sector. I want to invite everybody here to just, if you are interested, to take a look at the Major Gifts Intensive program that we run. If you need skills training for your staff team, if you want to transform your major gift results, if you want to add accountability and metrics, if you want to boost your major gift fundraising, the goal of this program is a 4-month training, webinar, live coaching program, and you will build out a structured, systematic major gift program that will deliver results for years to come.
Mhm.
We teach everything from setting up or expanding or enhancing your current prospect management system. We will enhance the metrics and accountability that you're already using with your team. We're training new team members. And one of our favorite items that we cover in this program is we teach you 5 different ways to ask for and close a mega gift. And our favorite, of course, is our new collaborative asking approach, in which you collaborate with the donor to work out not so much it's never about the money, it's about fulfilling the donor's vision, and there's a very deliberate path you can take. So we have organizations that of all sizes, mega international organizations, small grassroots organizations who have closed major gifts. And a lot of times people say that they now have the confidence. It's really interesting, the role of confidence in being able to approach a donor, know how to talk to them and the questions to ask, and a way that creates a mega gift and a happy donor. So we would love to chat with you about this. I'm going to ask Jen, our administrative wizard, to please post the link. I would love to chat with you about it. Beth Ann, you want to say anything about the Major Gifts program?
Well, I think there are several programs out there, and what makes ours different is that we not only have excellent education to take you from what we might call soup to nuts to the mindset to the actual close, but we do coaching, and it's with you. Your agenda drives the coaching. There are 3 one-hour sessions for that. So it is about, yes, best practices, but also about you and your needs. And I think that sets it apart from many, many others. And somebody asked the price, it's $6,500 for a team of 4. That's because we believe that a team working together shares the same knowledge, shares the same philosophy, and can help each other, because teamwork, along with culture of philanthropy and an attitude of abundance, are really what creates success for any group of people fundraising.
Yeah, Beth Ann runs the program, so she's very enthusiastic. But yes, international organizations have Australia, Europe, I think India, Brazil have
Canada.
participated, and of course Canada to great success. So let me go back. Where's my list of questions? Because I want to speak everybody to the political environment and legislative environment that we are facing. It is a volatile situation. We have a new administration who have been elected with promises and a lot of talk about change in the way philanthropy is approached, the way big foundations are managed. Gosh, how donor advised funds are handled. There's a lot of talk. And also, we are looking at the potential revision, or the Tax Act of 2017 is going to expire. And so all of the charitable deduction conversations are going to be on the table. And we do know that because of the increase in the standard deduction that happened in 2017, small donors didn't give as much. They started going down. But I want to hit on something else that I think is more pertinent to the revenue model for nonprofits. And that is that everybody take a good look at your government funding. And you are getting government grants from your county, your city, your state, various state government entities, hotels and meals tax in North Carolina funds a lot of nonprofit work and cultural organizations. The federal government makes all sorts of allocations that are sent down to the states. So here's your takeaway. Get to know your elected officials who make these decisions. Help them understand the impact of the government monies that are coming to your organization. So do what you can to mitigate any potential government fund cuts. And the other thing I would suggest is to bring your donors closer. The donors you do have, love on them. In the South, we say, come over here, let me love on you. You know, make sure that you are stewarding them down as much as you possibly can. As Leisha, go back to your wonderful comment about it's all about the relationships and the conversations. What can you do to keep your donors close and what is going to probably be an uncertain year? Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, donors are giving for impact. So it's not about how much money they have, it is impact. So you do talk about thanking them, but I like to tell people to put your donors right next to the impact and help them see the long term. We often operate on an annual basis and we talk about what we're doing this year. Help those bigger donors. I say take them to the mountaintop to see what the longer term plan is, because they're making an investment in your organization, not a donation.
Yeah.
And just a
Yeah.
sidebar to that, a footnote. When you say impact, not everyone understands what that means, but if you can articulate to your donors what will be different as a result of their gift,
Yes.
then it just takes on a whole more impactful meaning.
Yeah, what I was gonna add to what Beth said is that oftentimes impact has often been reported as, oh, we provided X number of meals last year. That's not impact. That's a statistic.
Outcome.
You have to
An
come back
output.
to, yeah. So you have to come back to what is your theory of change and how closer are you to your theory of change? If you don't have a theory of change, sit down and write one, figure that out with your team, because that's what donors give to change something in society that isn't working.
That's right.
That's right. And so it's really, is it really back to basics, approaching
Always.
donors the way they want to be approached, offering, find 7 ways to thank your donors and they'll give again, the classic stewardship motto. It's good. I mean, Ellie, you said earlier that we've got to make sure that our nuts and bolts and our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed with making sure the skills training is there for your major gift team and they know how to approach donors properly. Right, Ellie?
Absolutely. I mean, Gail Perry Group works with a number of small and large nonprofits and with seasoned and new fundraising professionals. And, I think everyone has something new that they can learn and a takeaway. I think this year we need to more than ever commit to the process. It's a commitment to a process that we know works. And it's understanding the donor engagement cycle, which is no longer a cycle, by the way. We know the elements of stewardship and cultivation and closing a gift, and that doesn't happen in stages. What we know now is that it is a fluid process, and the gift conversation doesn't happen at the end. It sometimes begins at the beginning of the relationship. It's really a skill that the Gail Perry Group does a great job of teaching, and it's best practices, but it's best practices on steroids and in a whole new way that you may not have seen it or heard of it
Well,
talked
Catherine,
about
you
people.
speak a lot. You speak a lot about how to pull your donors closer. What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, first of all, critically important. But you do so by talking to your donor in a way, not telling them what's happening, telling them. Well, yesterday I even used this phrase with somebody. I said, it's like a fire hose talking to you. Seriously.
Coming
Coming
nonprofit
at me
coming.
with all this information, would never stop talking, couldn't take a breath. I mean, nothing. And so it isn't about telling your donors more and more about your organization. It's about talking to your donor in a way that, and asking questions. This is really important to this process too, in a way that you learn more and more about what's important to them, what they value, why they're giving to your organization, how they came to be a donor, all of these things. And so that you understand really what it is that they want to achieve through their vision for their philanthropy. And that doesn't matter, that's very, very important at the major gift level, obviously, but it's important at all levels of giving. Because even a donor making a $25 gift has a reason for doing it.
That's right. Listening is really, one of the key skills instead of knowing what your mission statement is. And I think getting into those conversations and discovering their values will take you so much farther than telling them how this program's going to do this and that program's. People want to be in conversation.
And we also have a handout too that we can share on the collaborative ask and the steps to walk into a gift conversation. And it's very organic and it's very helpful. I want to speak of one other topic and then we're going to take questions. All right. I want to speak a little bit about DAFs and DAF donors. I asked this group if anybody was willing to speak to that and nobody wanted to, so I'm going to tackle it. And gosh, how much money is in DAFs right now? I was reading Chronicle Philanthropy yesterday, or maybe it was today, because I do read it every day. And there was somebody quoted that said the philanthropy has become captured by the wealth preservation industry. And the person said that DAF holders are encouraged to watch their money grow, not give it away. And that is a controversial topic that we fundraisers feel heavily. There's not a lot we can do about it. We can support the AFP Foundation for who is doing the lobbying on our behalf. But the fact is that we need to be able to identify DAF donors. And let me tell you, everybody, you have got DAF gifts coming into your organization right now, but you have not recognized them. And so you've got to educate your administrative team that is processing gifts. And you've got to be able to go to the extra mile. If you have a gift from some sort of location, you have to be able to do some research. And here's why this is so important. Catherine, what do you say? That anybody who has a DAF is ready to give major gifts?
Well, there's a sign that they may be major gift potential because they have obviously taken advantage of tax benefit by creating the DAF fund to start with. That's when they get their tax benefit. So, you need to talk to your donor. The other thing that, and I think look carefully, all of you. Some of you probably larger organizations and smaller sophisticated organizations know how to record a DAF properly in your CRM. Make sure you're doing that correctly so that you're recognizing and thanking the donor. Right. And then also knowing who the sponsor or administrator of the DAF is. That's going to be important too.
And a DAF is a donor advised fund, and they they're a tax vehicle in the United States. They can be used to make gifts anywhere in the world. So they're not limited to the US. It's when a donor sells a business, reorganizing their state, they set up money in a donor advised fund and they immediately take a very large tax deduction. And that's supposed to go out. Yes, they're required minimum distributions. There's a lot of controversy about whether that's really happening. The data is spotty, I would say, but I'm going to bless and release the DAF topic because again, we could have a robust conversation.
I have one more thing I want to say about it. Just one quick thing. Yeah. Another reason to be important with these donors is you ask them what that's going to happen to their DAF after they pass away.
Yes.
Because they can give you that entire DAF.
Oh. Ooh,
They can undo the DAF and give it to, they have to give it to a charitable organization, obviously, but they can't like take it home. But they can, and I've had donors when I was doing in the field working, that's exactly what we did with the DAF.
yep.
And they gave the entire remainder of the DAF to the organization where I was working.
Great point. Okay, we're going to wrap up with one last question. How do environmental disasters, just like this terrible situation in LA, Los Angeles, North US, how do these kind of disasters impact philanthropy? Now, I would say that we are all saying you should not be doing any fundraising in the LA area. That's number one, right, Ellie?
Yeah, this is the time to, look at your donor database. And if you have donors in that part of the country, make sure that you halt any fundraising appeals to those donors for now and in future months. I think that is imperative and incumbent upon all of us to be sensitive to and to take action on.
And we are also seeing the fact that there are a lot of very major donors in the LA area who support causes all over the country and the world. And they are major and mega and principal gift donors to all sorts of organizations. And I would say that those gifts may be diverted to help their local communities, because that's what we saw in North Carolina when we had the huge floods in our western mountains. So again, bring your donors close. Help them feel like insiders, help them feel like you are appreciating their gifts and that you want their input. Any other words about this group?
Yeah, I would just add this. I mean, ask your donors. You can add, let's say, especially if you have a one-to-one relationship with a donor, you can always ask them what are they using some of their philanthropy to support what's going on in the world right now, i.e. the fires. And we had that with the hurricane in Helene in our western mountains in North Carolina, where we saw a lot of donors make first-time gifts. We had some clients in that area make first-time gifts to those clients, as well as give to the disaster support. We saw it in the pandemic too, when people were seeing on the television the food insecurity and lines of cars out, just endless lines at food banks. We had a food bank client at the time whose annual giving quadrupled.
Yes.
But it's
the thing
temporary.
it was
That's important
temporary.
to keep in mind
Yes.
that is not sustainable usually.
Exactly. That one
With-
was not. The donors
You know,
told us specifically that they were going to, they did that one time and now their gifts were going back to their. But I will say what happens, and this is important to Ellie's point also, when these kinds of things happen and a donor shifts something in their philanthropic priorities, even momentarily, they also will take a look at all of their priorities.
Right.
So staying really close to your donors when this is going on, seeing how they're feeling, seeing what they're doing. Could you share with me who else you're supporting right now? I'd love to know more about your philanthropy, whatever, however you couch those questions, you need to be talking to them, because when they look at their philanthropy, they're going to be making decisions about what they keep in their stable of good organizations they support and what they let go of.
And are they feeling appreciated or not?
Right. So to Gail's earlier point regarding stewardship,
To us.
critically overlooked strategy.
Everybody,
It's okay to.
Sorry, excuse me, Ellie, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say it's okay to ask donors those kinds of questions. Have your fundraising priorities changed? Tell me more about that, and then be empathetic in response. And it's a great time to ask, how are we doing in stewarding our relationship with you? What could we be doing differently?
It's not about the money, everybody. It cannot be about the money. So everybody, before you leave, we're thrilled to be able to work with you today. What are your takeaways? Can we see in the chat box your takeaways from today? What landed? I know there were so many questions. I wish that maybe we could do another one and just take questions on all these topics, because it's robust and rich. Somebody said Aaron appreciated the point about affinity and the reminder that DAFs can be donated, the entire corpus. Evaluate prospects based on affinity. Crystal liked the panel overall. It's not about the money. Jenny says, so many helpful reminders. Call the gift major, not the person donor. I love that too. Who said that? It was a Beth Ann?
Leisha.
Leisha, brilliant. And so apropos. Piece of Action says this would be a great Q&A audience session. What were your takeaways? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to think about and focus on going forward? Keep donors close in 25, says Laura. Lifeline, not pipeline. Thank you, Leisha. That's great. That's great. So we will stick around and take a couple of questions. And gosh, I don't know. There were so many. Beth Ann, did you see any you want to address right
Well,
now?
it's easier if they put it actually in the question box because it's just flying. So Krista has a question. Can you address the difference between messaging for major gifts, annual appeals when it comes to capital campaigns? So those two things. And it seems that major donors prefer to know about the assets and infrastructure as opposed to the critical need that drives annual support more typically.
Well, I would say if you're dealing with a capital campaign, you're talking to major donors, it's one-on-one and it's very customized. So the messaging would be completely tailored. And then unfortunately, when you have a large number of donors at a certain level and you're doing mass communications, the best you can do is segment that database and try to communicate with people based on their donor identity, their interests, or their past performance, which I really wouldn't, we prefer not to communicate with donors based on their gift size, past gift size, but instead their activity level, I think, as Ellie pointed out. That was great, Beth Ann.
I have another question by Kate. Oh, hi, Kate. We were asked by donors to wait to make asks after the election for major gifts. But now there are fires near us in California because she's in the LA area. And it feels like continuation of uncertain times / hard times to reach out. I maybe have had individual donors asked to wait for that conversation, but not a collective group. What do you guys think on the panel?
Donors have their own timetable.
Yes, yes.
And we don't have a lot of control over a donor's timetable. The best we can do is be close to them so that you can ask where we are in your philanthropic priorities. That's interesting.
I do think that sometimes people resort to excuses. You know, if someone says, I don't want to give until after the election, you know, you might want to do a deeper dive into their true motivations for holding off on giving.
Yeah, we call that a clarifying question, right, Kat?
Yes.
You should never stop asking because
Never.
two donors say, you know, I won't give until after this happens.
I would also frame it this way: developing a relationship with a donor is inquiry driven.
Yes.
That is the role of the major gift person.
And what she means, explain
Donor.
what you
I mean, not donor. The
inquiry.
those are the questions that, you know, and it's not an inquisition, although I use the word inquiry. They're gentle questions, and we teach this in the MGI program also. What kind of questions that you should be asking along the way so that the donor gives you breadcrumbs to actually, so you have something to follow, and then they're just a little trail, and they will tell you. If you ask the donor what their timing is, the donor will tell you. They'll either say something like, not sure yet, or they'll tell you 2 weeks from now.
And sometimes they don't know. And it's up to us as the professionals to help them navigate their decision-making process. That's our jobs.
I call it leading with curiosity instead of assumptions because I've got a donor profile.
That's a great way to put it.
Yes. Kristen Lynch says, can you speak to the rising interest from the fundraising institution on raising unrestricted funds rather than restricted funds? And which ones donors seem more interested in restricted funds and what you should do as a fundraiser? You know this old one.
Who wants to tackle unrestricted? Well, see, y'all, I have a code word to raise unrestricted gifts.
What?
I have a code phrase. If you're writing an appeal, ask for money to run these programs that the donors so believe in. Run the programs, support these programs. You can word it so that it is unrestricted, and yet it feels specific. If that makes any sense. If you're a food bank, you know, you can talk about the children and the families and the wait list, and you know, and you say we're raising money this fall for our school children program. Please give us money to, or whatever. Please support, help us bring this program to the group. Or running the program is my favorite word to use in the.
Almost all large and transformational gifts are going to be restricted. So
Yes.
you have got to have big ideas and big priorities to put in front of your larger donors.
How about one more?
One more.
And what is the best way to break the ice in approaching legacy gifts, because it relates to the donor's actual demise? And that's one of your myth busting things, right, Leisha?
What do you think, Leisha?
Yeah, see, the thing is that this question comes from a place of wanting to apply a major gift solicitation technique to legacies, to gifts and wills, and it is not at all like that at all. First of all, you don't show up at someone's home and ask them for a legacy like that without having them prepared well in advance. And I'm not talking like, oh, the last 3 months because we're in a campaign. I'm talking for years. You've been nurturing that. There's been legacy sprinkle provided to them. And so, so first of all, you don't just break the ice that way. That's not how an ask happens. Second of all, you never actually talk about the person's death. The gift is activated at death, but the conversation during a formal ask for a gift and a will revolves around the life that they lived, the values that were important to them, their connection to the organization, and what their vision of the future looks like. That's what the conversation revolves around. That's why legacies is so amazing, because it's the depth of the conversation is at a level that you'll never experience in any other fundraising. So you need to, if you need to face your own mortality so that you can have those conversations, that's often the kind of work I do with clients. Of first, you need to sort out your stuff and know what your donor is going through by doing your own estate planning, and then let's debunk how a legacy ask happens.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Leisha. Thank you so much, Ellie and Beth Ann and Catherine. Appreciate your thoughtful comments and your brilliance and your experience that shows with everything you say. It's been so much fun working with everybody. We are thrilled to provide this service to the world of fundraising and philanthropy. We wish you the very best in your fundraising. Please be sure to check out our newsletter on Friday mornings and come to our future webinars. Let us know if you're interested in Major Gifts Intensive. And if you're planning a capital campaign, we'd be thrilled to offer you a free strategy call. So let us know how we can serve you and your mission as best we possibly can.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.